Zoe, Grandma's fading fast. Shed a tear for God's sake. You heartless brat. The shrill cursing pierced my eardrums, and I snapped my eyes open. Wait, wasn't I dead? In my past life, my Aunt May had backed me into a corner. By my early 30s, I was riddled with illness and died alone in a drafty, unheated rental apartment. When I died, I was still clutching that pitch-black wooden box. Zoe. On the hospital bed, Grandma's withered hand grabbed mine. I looked down, and tears instantly crashed onto my cheeks. Grandma, this is for you. Trembling, Grandma pulled that familiar black wooden box from under her pillow. Take it. It'll keep you safe. This was it. This box was the beginning of my nightmare in my last life. Because I protected it, Aunt May went crazy, telling everyone I had embezzled Grandma's gold bars. The whole family, including my own parents, believed her. Grandma isolated me, ostracized me, and called me an ungrateful wolf. Until the day I died, I didn't understand what I had done wrong. It wasn't until my soul was trapped in the box after my death that I learned the truth. This wasn't some treasure, it was a cursed object that suppressed generations of bad luck for the Luo family. Grandma wanted me to hold it so I would absorb the misfortune for the whole family. If I took the hit, everyone else in the family would have smooth sailing. Specifically so Aunt May's son, my cousin Rick, could land a cushy government job and marry a pretty wife. I was the sacrifice. Mom, you're playing favorites. A figure threw herself at the bedside. It was Aunt May. She maintained herself well for her age, but right now, her face was twisted with greed. What good stuff did you give that girl? What does a little brat like her deserve? Let me see it. She reached out to snatch it. In my last life, I guarded it with my life. She even bent my fingers back until my nails broke. This time, watching her pounce, I relaxed my grip. Oops. The box slipped right out of my hands. May was quick. She snatched the box into her arms, acting like a starving wolf guarding fresh meat. Everyone in the room stared at her. I let out a loud wail, lunging to grab at her clothes, crying my heart out. Aunt May, you can't take that. Grandma gave that to me. Give it back. May froze. She hugged the box tight, her eyes darting around. She must have thought that because I was crying so hard, there had to be a priceless treasure inside. What are you crying for over a broken wooden box? May stuffed the box tighter against her chest. Kids don't know anything. I'm just keeping it safe for you. Aunt May. My parents came up to pull me back. Stop making a scene. Your aunt is your elder. That was my parents, cowardly, incompetent, and always trying to smooth things over at my expense. May held the box, shooting me a smug look. She lowered her head to hide the smile curling at the corners of her mouth. At that moment, Grandma's breathing stopped completely. Aunt May, no, the Luo family's designated disaster magnet. May, you'd better hold on to that wealth tight. Grandma's funeral was rushed. Aunt May acted out of character. Instead of wailing and screaming at the service, she was energetic. I saw her sneak into the corner several times to touch the black wooden box in her pocket. Her triangular eyes were shimmering with dreams of getting rich. Rick, honey, Mom secured a treasure for you. I was walking by with Grandma's portrait and overheard May on the phone with my cousin. Rick was May's whole world. He had just graduated college and was preparing to interview for a prestigious federal job. Your grandma gave it to us. The old lady finally favored me. Put this treasure in your room, and it'll guarantee you pass the interview. You'll bring glory to our ancestors. I didn't stop walking. Good. In my last life, I kept the box by my bed and absorbed the bad luck for the whole family. This time, May put it right in her son Rick's room. As soon as the funeral ended, I started packing. I didn't want to stay in this house a second longer. Zoe, what are you doing? My mom saw me dragging my suitcase. Your grandma just passed, and you're running off? I found a job. I'm moving into the company dorms. I lied with a straight face. You child. Oh, let her go, sis-in-law. Why do you care? Aunt May walked over, cracking sunflower seeds, her face glowing with health. If she wants to leave, let her. A girl eventually belongs to another family anyway. Perfect, actually, we can turn her room into a study for my Rick. My dad opened his mouth but eventually lowered his head, whispering, May, what's wrong with the other room? May glared. If Zoe isn't living there, why can't my Rick use it? If Rick gets the job, won't that make you look good too? My parents immediately shut up. I dragged my suitcase out of that house without looking back. I rented a tiny studio apartment. The window faced north, making it small and dark, but I cleaned every inch of it. Lying on the small bed, smelling the scent of sunshine on my duvet, I felt like the mountain that had crushed me for over a decade. That black wooden box, that conglomerate of misfortune, had finally been moved. I felt light. I went downstairs to a street stall and bought a bowl of hot wontons. They tasted incredible. My new life had begun. I found an internship at a small ad agency downtown. It was exhausting, but my mind was incredibly clear, and I learned fast. In my past life, I always felt like I was wrapped in a fog. Everything I did went wrong, and I had terrible luck. Now the fog had lifted. Zoe, fast reaction time. One day, my supervisor needed a file urgently. Relying on memory, I dug it out of the archives in 3 minutes. The supervisor patted my shoulder, satisfied. I was thrilled. This would have been impossible before. The old me would have been clumsy and messed it up. Just as I was celebrating internally, my mom called. Zoe, something happened to your cousin. My heart skipped a beat. So soon? What happened to Rick? He passed the interview. Everything was set. He went for his physical today, and my mom's voice sounded bizarre. The toxicology report said he's on drugs. I paused. Rick on drugs? Impossible. Rick was the apple of May's eye. She controlled him strictly. He didn't even smoke cigarettes. Could it be a mistake? That's what your Aunt May says. She's making a scene at the hospital, claiming they're framing a good kid. Rick is scared witless, swearing he never touched the stuff. My mom said urgently. May wants you to come over immediately. We're all family. Mom, I'm at work. I'm busy. I cut her off. A toxicology report is science. May throwing a tantrum won't change it. You child. I hung up. I heard the rest of the story that evening. May turned the hospital upside down, until they called the police. Even the cops couldn't stop her. She rolled on the floor, screaming that the hospital was conspiring to ruin her son. Finally, with the police watching, the hospital drew another vial of blood from Rick for an expedited retest. The result came back negative. It was a mix-up. A giant mistake. May sent dozens of voice notes in the family group chat, triumphant. I told you my Rick was innocent. Those blind doctors almost ruined my son's future. If it weren't for that black wooden box, that treasure is truly powerful. She attributed the save to the box's blessings. But I knew better. That wasn't a blessing, it was a warning. The bad luck had started working. First, it played a little joke, a joke that could ruin a life. Rick's drug test was a mix-up, but the government agency got suspicious. They were supposed to onboard him the following Monday, but now they said the process needed further review. May was furious but didn't dare cause a scene at the government office, so she went home and cursed the doctors. The louder she cursed, the more I knew she was panicking. Meanwhile, my work was on track. My supervisor saw I was reliable and started giving me simple design drafts. One day, just as I finished a design, my colleague Josh walked by with coffee. Zoe, good work. He reached out, but his grip slipped. The coffee was about to pour all over my laptop. I was startled, but a split second earlier, I had felt thirsty and reached for my water cup. Because of that single motion, my body shifted back 2 inches. The scalding coffee splashed entirely onto the desk in front of me. My laptop was untouched. Oh my God. Josh's face went pale. Zoe, are you okay? The computer. I'm fine. The computer is fine too. I pulled out tissues to wipe the desk, feeling a wave of relief. If I had been a second later or hadn't moved, the laptop would have been fried. I couldn't afford a new one on this month's salary. You have really good luck, Josh said. I smiled. Yes, my luck was back. This was just the normal luck a person should have, neither good nor bad. But Aunt May's bad luck was just getting started. She went back to the hospital to make a scene. She demanded the hospital apologize to her son and pay for emotional distress. My son is a genius. You almost ruined him. If you don't pay up 80 or 100 grand, this isn't over. She rolled around on the hospital lobby floor. The hospital had no choice but to call the police again. The cops called my parents and my uncle over to mediate. May sat on the floor, pointing at the surveillance camera and screaming, "Look! It's him. He messed it up last time. He's trying to hurt my Rick on purpose." She screamed all morning, exhausted herself, and was finally escorted out by the police. She got nothing. She stormed home, still furious on the bus. She touched the black wooden box in her pocket. Bad luck. Those dogs. Wait until my son gets the job, we'll deal with you one by one. Cursing under her breath, she got off the bus and walked to the market to buy a fish. She reached into her pocket for money, but it was empty. She froze. She felt around again. There was a huge slit at the bottom of her pocket, cut by a razor blade. Her salary from last month, plus the cash she had prepared to buy Rick a new suit, it was all in that wallet. Gone. Not a penny left. My money. May's wretched scream echoed through the entire market. Losing the money nearly drove her insane. She called the police, but the bus had been packed. The surveillance footage couldn't identify the pickpocket. That money was gone for good. May went home and fell seriously ill. While she was sick, Rick's iron rice bowl job fell through. The agency dragged it out for 2 weeks before finally replying, "The positions are filled. Comrade Rick's materials have been added to our talent pool." That was the polite way of saying get lost. May was devastated. "It's all you. You jinx." May lay in bed, pointing at her husband, Uncle Bob. "If you weren't so useless, would I have had to go to the hospital and make a scene? If I hadn't gone, would the thief have targeted me?" Uncle Bob was a silent man. He took the abuse without daring to talk back. "And Rick," she started cursing her son. "You're useless too. How could you have a problem with a physical? What were you doing before?" "Mom, the hospital made a mistake, I told you." Rick was frustrated too. "A mistake? Because of a mistake, they don't want you anymore. You just don't have the destiny for it." May took out all her resentment on her family. At this moment, Rick's girlfriend of 3 years, Lily, came over. Lily was there to discuss the apartment. Her family was well off, and the two families had agreed that once Rick secured the job, they would pool money for a down payment. "Auntie, about Rick's job," Lily asked cautiously, holding a basket of fruit. "Job? What job?" May had nowhere to vent, and seeing Lily made her explode. "You bad luck charm. You walk in the door and ask about the job. Do you want to break up just because my Rick lost the position? I'm telling you, no way." Lily's eyes reddened at the abuse. "Auntie, I didn't mean that." "Yes, you did. Your whole family looks down on us. Now that my Rick is down on his luck, you want to run? You little vixen." May's insults got uglier. "Mom, shut up," Rick shouted, anxious. "I should shut up?" May jumped off the bed. "Who am I doing this for?" "It's for you. You ungrateful brat, siding with outsiders." She slapped Rick across the face. Lily stood there, stunned. She looked at this hideous prospective mother-in-law, then at Rick, who was covering his face and afraid to speak. Lily smashed the fruit basket onto the floor. "My thing. You lunatic. The wedding is off. Whoever marries into your family is cursed for 8 lifetimes. Lily ran out crying. May's house was in chaos. Meanwhile, I received my first bonus that month. My supervisor said the client loved my design. It wasn't much, $800, but I bought myself a new coat, a creamy white one, very warm. I stood in front of the mirror, feeling that the girl with the rosy cheeks and bright eyes looked both like a stranger and someone I used to know. With Lily gone, the marriage was officially dead. Rick lost his job and his wife overnight. He locked himself in his room and didn't come out for 3 days. May finally panicked. Her illness vanished, she stopped cursing, and she started praying. She decided she hadn't offered enough to the treasure. She took out the black wooden box and offered the most expensive sandalwood incense she could find, bowing to it 3 times a day. "Precious box, oh precious box, what do you want? My money is gone, my son's job is gone. What do you need to protect my Rick?" She cried as she bowed. The black wooden box became shinier and darker from the smoke. May treated it like an ancestor, placing it right at the head of Rick's bed. "Rick, don't be scared. Mom is here. The treasure will protect you." Rick didn't speak. Night came. May couldn't sleep. She felt a sense of dread. In the middle of the night, she heard a loud thud from Rick's room. She rushed over. The door was locked from the inside. Rick. What's wrong? Open the door. Silence. Terrified, May grabbed a cleaver from the kitchen and hacked the lock open. She charged in to find Rick on the floor, foaming at the mouth, convulsing. Next to him was an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Rick. May's scream tore through the night. The ambulance wailed. Uncle Bob, my parents, the whole family was alerted. Rick was loaded onto a stretcher. May followed with disheveled hair, looking like a demon. I stood at the back of the crowd. I saw the black wooden box sitting quietly on the desk in Rick's room, emitting a strange, rotting sweet scent from the incense. Under the box was a piece of paper, Rick's retest report. That negative report was now covered in dense, black spots, like corpse spots. The bad luck had stopped pretending. Rick survived. They pumped his stomach and put him on IVs, dragging him back from death's door. But he was ruined. The doctor said the overdose was massive. It damaged his nerves. He would likely have permanent complications. Overnight, May's hair turned completely white. She sat in the hospital hallway, eyes hollow. She didn't understand. She had secured the treasure. Her son was the chosen one. How did it end up like this? Job gone, fiancé gone, now almost dead. Suddenly, she remembered something. It was Zoe. It was that brat. It was her. She hurt me. May stormed out of the hospital like a madwoman and rushed to my parents' house. She kicked the door open. Where is Zoe? Where is that little bitch? Get her out here. My parents were terrified. May, are you crazy? Zoe moved out a long time ago. Moved out? May laughed coldly. She hurt my whole family and thinks she can run? I'm telling you, no way. She gave me that black wooden box. That box is evil. She did it on purpose to hurt me, to hurt my Rick. May finally figured it out. But she didn't blame her own greed, she blamed me for setting a trap. My parents were stunned. What evil object? Wasn't that the treasure Grandma gave her? Treasure my ass. May wailed. It's a curse. An evil thing. Whoever holds it gets destroyed. That little bitch Zoe, she knew. She deliberately refused it so I would snatch it. My parents looked at each other. They thought May had snapped from the trauma. May, calm down. I can't calm down. May lunged, grabbing my mom. Call Zoe back. Make her take the box away. Now. Or my Rick is going to die. Scared by her insanity, my mom called me. Stuttering, she repeated May's words. Zoe, your Aunt May, she says the box is evil. She wants you to take it back. Oh. I was working late at the office, finishing the final version of a design. When can you come back? Mom, I'm busy. I don't have time. Zoe. My mom got anxious. Do you know what time it is? Your cousin almost died. Your aunt is insane. Can't you come back and look? We're family after all. Family. That word again. In my last life, that word made me die in misery. Mom, I said calmly. Aunt May snatched the box. I didn't give it to her. She grabbed that wealth herself, so let her enjoy it herself. How can you be so cold-blooded? Cold-blooded? I laughed. I hung up. Outside the window, the city lights were coming on. I stretched. The design was perfect. I sent it to my supervisor, who instantly replied with an okay emoji. I closed my laptop and clocked out. You and your precious son Rick, neither of you will escape. My parents were left speechless. I hung up, and my world was quiet. But May's world wasn't. Unable to find me at my parents', she caused a scene at my rental. I don't know how she got my address. She blocked me in the stairwell after work. Zoe, you little bitch. You finally showed your face. Her hair was greasy, her eyes bruised with fatigue. I barely recognized her. She was clutching that black wooden box tightly. Take this back. She rushed over, trying to shove the box into my arms. I took a step back, dodging her. Aunt May, you prayed for the medical report yourself. You failed to watch Rick's meds yourself. And you snatched this box yourself. I looked at her coldly. Now that you're unlucky, you blame the box. Why didn't you blame it the day Rick passed the written exam? May choked. She was that kind of person. Good things were her own merit, bad things were everyone else's fault. Don't give me that crap. May's face twisted. I have to give it back to you today. This is yours. Your grandma gave it to you. Screaming, she smashed the black wooden box at my face. I didn't move. I let the box hit my shoulder, and then clatter onto the floor. The box broke open. It was empty. No gold bars, no land deeds, not even a scrap of paper. Just an empty box. May froze. It was probably the first time she'd seen it open. The treasure she imagined was nothing. How is it empty? She muttered. Aunt May, I said. You snatched it. You threw it at me. Now you pick it up. My voice was calm. May shivered. She looked at the empty box on the floor, its dark opening staring right at her. She suddenly understood something. She couldn't leave it on the ground. She had to hold it. May shook like a leaf. She bent down, trembling as she put the lid back on the empty box, and hugged it to her chest again. Zoe, I'm begging you, she cried. Auntie was wrong. Take it back. Please take it back. I'll give you money. You have no money, I said, walking around her to go upstairs. Take it back. May's desperate wails echoed in the stairwell. May cried in the hallway for half the night until the neighbors called the police, who took her away. She came back the next day. She didn't scream anymore, she just sat on the stairs by my door, hugging the box like a ghost. I went to work, she followed me. I got off work, she waited at the company gate. Zoe, have mercy. Zoe, you have such a cruel heart. She was like a broken record. I got annoyed. Right in front of her, I went to a realtor and broke my lease. I used my bonus and savings to move to a gated community further away with better security. I changed my phone number. I completely vanished from her world. Unable to find me, May went back to my parents. Brother, sister-in-law, where did you hide Zoe? Tell her to come out. My parents were exhausted by her. May, what is wrong with that box? Isn't it just an empty box? Is this necessary? My mom still didn't get it. Empty box. May laughed, a sound uglier than crying. That thing demands life. You don't understand anything. May tried to shove the box into my dad's hands. Brother, you're Zoe's dad. You hold it for her. My dad recoiled like the box was red-hot iron. I don't want it. Don't give it to me. You're all forcing me. May hugged the box and ran away, stumbling. She went home. The house was freezing. Rick was discharged, but the aftereffects were obvious. His hands shook, he walked with a limp, and sometimes he would stare at a spot and giggle for hours. The doctor said it was drug-induced neurological damage, hard to recover from. Hungry. Rick sat on the sofa, drooling, speaking slurred words. Looking at her son, once the pride of the family, now reduced to this, the last string in May's mind snapped. She grabbed the black wooden box. It's all you. You hurt my son. She smashed the box on the floor. It bounced undamaged. She picked it up and scalded it with boiling water. The black lacquer didn't even peel. Finally, she threw the box into the neighborhood dumpster. She sighed in relief. It was gone. She ran home, happily hugging Rick. Son, Mom threw the evil thing away. You'll get better. The next morning, May opened the door to buy breakfast. The black wooden box was lying quietly on her doormat. Pristine. May broke down. She discovered she couldn't get rid of it. She buried it in the park the next day, it was in her rice jar. She threw it in the river the next day, it was beside Rick's pillow. The box had latched onto her. She resigned herself to fate. She locked the box in a safe and pasted Taoist talismans on it. She thought this would lock away the bad luck, but misfortune is fluid. It began to spread from May to the people closest to her. Uncle Bob, my honest, quiet uncle who had never blushed in his life, worked at a construction site. One day, while fastening his safety harness, the buckle failed. He didn't notice. He stepped into empty air and fell from the third-story scaffolding. He didn't die, but he broke his leg and 3 ribs. The foreman was a distant relative of May's. Instead of calling an ambulance, he dragged Uncle Bob back to the dorms. Old Rong, hold on, it's a small injury. The foreman was afraid of paying damages, so he waited half a day before sending him to the hospital. Uncle Bob missed the window for proper treatment. He was crippled. one leg 3 centimeters shorter than the other. When May got the diagnosis at the hospital, she didn't cry or scream. She was numb. She paid the bill and pushed Uncle Bob home in a wheelchair to their dilapidated house. Rick was still giggling. Uncle Bob hung his head, silent. Looking at these two men, one feeble-minded, one crippled, May suddenly laughed. Karma, it's karma. She laughed until tears ran down her face. She was now the sole breadwinner. She had to work to feed the family. My life was getting better and better. I switched jobs, moving to a larger company. My direct boss appreciated me, and my ideas always surprised her. All the creativity suppressed by bad luck in my previous life had returned. I was promoted to team lead. I got a year-end bonus and rented a south-facing one-bedroom apartment near the office. It had a big balcony, which I filled with flowers. On weekends, I hugged my cat, drank coffee, and soaked up the sun. I thought I would never have anything to do with the Luo family again, until my parents showed up. They had asked around for my new address specifically to see me. Zoe, you're living nicely now. My mom's eyes darted everywhere as soon as she entered. She touched my sofa, checked my fridge. TSK, living alone in such a big place. What a waste. My dad nodded. Zoe, it's not safe for a girl to live alone out here. Why don't you move back home? I looked at them. Their faces wore that familiar expression of greed mixed with entitlement. Home? I laughed. Which home? Wasn't your home taken over by Aunt May ages ago? Zoe, watch your mouth. Your aunt's family is going through some things. What does her family's trouble have to do with me? I poured them 2 glasses of water. Plain tap water. Mom, Dad, just say it. You didn't come here just to compliment my apartment. My mom rubbed her hands together and finally spoke. Zoe, look, you're successful now. Your Uncle Bob broke his leg, and the construction site didn't pay much. Your cousin's brain is damaged, and he needs meds every day. Your aunt can't hold on much longer alone. He's still your. So? I asked. We were thinking we're all family. Can't you help out a bit? I looked at my mom. Oh, help how? You're a team lead now, you must make good money. Send your aunt some money every month. $3,000, no, $2,000. $2,000 is enough. Just consider it. Consider it fulfilling your filial duty to your grandma. I laughed. I laughed loudly. Filial duty to grandma? Giving money to support the aunt who snatched my bad luck? Mom, you really know how to calculate. Zoe, my dad slapped the table. How can you be so unfilial? Even if May was wrong, she's your elder. He wanted me to pay to support her? Support her son? Her husband? I stood up and stared at them. In my last life, when they backed me into a corner and I was starving to death, where were these elders then? My parents were stunned by the look in my eyes. They didn't expect their usually submissive daughter to talk back like this. You. Get out. I opened the door. Before I call the police, get out. They left with their tails between their legs. My parents' failure to leech off me was the final level of hell for Aunt May. She was completely out of money. Uncle Bob's meds cost money. Rick's meds cost money. Rent, utilities, everything costs money. She started selling things. She sold everything in the house, valuable or not. Finally, she set her eyes on the safe locking away the black wooden box. May sold the safe to a scrap metal collector. Take this thing. $50. Haul it away fast. The scrapper left happily, and May got $50. She thought she had finally sent the curse away. She used the money to buy 2 meat buns for Rick, while she gnawed on a plain mantou. When she got home that night, Uncle Bob was groaning in bed, and Rick was giggling on the sofa. She went into the kitchen to boil water. She opened the rice jar. The pitch-black wooden box was lying quietly at the bottom of the rice, still sporting a speck of rust from the scrap yard. May let out a shriek. She grabbed a cleaver and hacked madly at the box. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Sparks flew as steel hit wood. The box didn't even have a scratch, but the blade of the cleaver curled. May dropped the knife, fell to her knees and wailed. She couldn't win. She would never escape this thing in this lifetime. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. She started talking to the box. What do you want? I have nothing left, I have nothing left. She sprinkled Rick's medicine on the box. She sprinkled Uncle Bob's painkillers on the box. Finally, she grabbed a handful of raw rice and threw it on the box. Eat it. Eat it. Eat us all. She was insane. Completely gone. Because there was no money for follow-up treatment, Uncle Bob's leg was permanently useless. He was a grown man now bedridden. Rick's condition fluctuated when lucid. He would hold his head and cry, asking his mother, "How did I become like this?" When he was manic, he smashed things and hit people. He hit May. "It's all you. You crazy hag. You ruined me." May was beaten black and blue by her beloved son. She didn't fight back. She just hugged the black wooden box and giggled. The family was finished. The landlord came to collect rent, saw the state of the apartment, and backed away in horror. "I'm not renting to you. Get out now." May couldn't pay, so they were evicted. A family of 3, a cripple, a fool, and a lunatic. Their entire fortune consisted of a broken wheelchair, some tattered clothes, and a black wooden box. May had nowhere to go. They went back to the old Luo family home, where my parents lived. "Brother, sister-in-law, save us." May knelt before my parents with a thud. "I'm not human. I wronged you. Please take us in. Or the 3 of us will starve to death on the street." She was still clutching that box tightly in her arms. My parents softened. Or rather, they were afraid. They were afraid May dying on their doorstep would be bad luck. "Come in." May's family of 3 moved back into my old small room, the one she had originally wanted for Rick's study. "It really works," May said, touching the walls of the room, smiling. "Rick, you moved in after all." Rick drooled and laughed along with her. After Aunt May's family moved in, my parents' suffering began. Uncle Bob needed care. Rick needed to be spoon-fed. May placed the black wooden box right in the center of my parents' living room. "Brother, sister-in-law, this treasure belongs to the Luo family. I can't be the only one worshipping it. This is a blessing for everyone." She forced my parents to kowtow to the box every day. When my parents refused, May went berserk. "You won't bow? You want to dump all the bad luck on me? Dream on." She would wake up in the middle of the night and chop vegetables with a cleaver right outside my parents' bedroom door. Terrified, my parents started kowtowing. Then they started getting unlucky too. My dad went out and got hit by a bicycle. My mom cut her finger cooking. The TV exploded. The water heater broke. In just 1 month, my parents aged 10 years. They finally couldn't take it anymore. They called me. "Zoe, save Mom and Dad. Your aunt is crazy, she's going to kill us." "Mom, Dad," I said, looking at my fresh manicure, speaking lightly. "That is your family. You invited them in yourselves." I hung up. 2 weeks later, I heard something happened at the old house. Neighbors called the police saying there had been no movement for days, but a foul smell was drifting out. The police broke down the door. My parents, Uncle Bob, and Rick were all on the floor. Carbon monoxide poisoning. All 4 were dead. The only living thing in the house was May. She was sitting in the center of the living room, hugging the black wooden box, humming a lullaby. Sleep now, my precious baby." She gave the police officers who rushed in a grotesque smile. May was taken away. The evaluation determined she had been insane for a long time. She hadn't turned on the gas, the old pipes had leaked on their own. An accident. An accident that took out the entire Luo family. As the only direct relative, I handled the funeral arrangements. I bought 5 small urns and buried them together. The police asked me what to do with the black wooden box found in May's arms. "Is it evidence?" I asked. "No, just an ordinary old wooden box." "Throw it away then," I said. "Okay." I stood in the cemetery, looking at the 5 tombstones in a row. In my last life, I died alone in a rental, and none of them came to collect my body. In this life, I stood here, and they were all lying below. I didn't cry, and I didn't smile. I just felt the sky was very blue, and the wind was very light. I turned to walk down the mountain. My phone rang. It was my new boyfriend. We had a movie date tonight. "Zoe, I got the popcorn. Hurry up." "I'm coming." I hung up and took a deep breath. The air smelled of fresh grass. I was no longer the Luo family's disaster absorber. I was just Zoe. Story 2. 6 months after my brother died, My sister-in-law gave birth to a baby girl in a chaotic urban village, then vanished into thin air. Following an address found in the baby's blanket, Mrs. Higgins from the community board knocked on my door and shoved the infant into my arms. My parents, eyes red with tears, begged me to raise the child. From that moment on, I sacrificed my youth and my future, becoming an unwed mother. I raised her to be a gymnastics champion. On the night of her celebratory banquet, my sister-in-law returned. Draped in jewelry, she pointed at my nose and called me a thief, accusing me of stealing her flesh and blood. My niece broke free from my hand, crying as she threw herself into her birth mother's arms. Together with her bio dad, they had me committed to a psychiatric hospital. After being tortured to death, I opened my eyes and was back to the morning Mrs. Higgins came knocking. Early in the morning, urgent knocking echoed through the entire stairwell. My heart contracted violently. It was this exact moment. In my last life, Mrs. Higgins from the community board had pounded on my door just like this, alerting all the neighbors. In front of everyone, she shoved a baby girl at me, righteously criticizing me for having a child out of wedlock and being irresponsible. Later, I learned it was my brother's child. My parents begged bitterly, saying that since I planned to stay single forever, I might as well raise her. I agreed, but I paid for that decision with my life. Now that life-demanding knock sounded again. I jolted up from bed, rushed over, and yanked the door open. Standing outside was the face I remembered until the moment I died. Norajo, you young people learn nothing good. Giving birth and throwing the baby in a dumpster? Do you know abandonment is a felony? Neighbors poked their heads out, whispering and pointing fingers. I stared at her dead on. The next second, I executed a clean cartwheel and jump, landing steadily right in front of her. The hallway went dead silent. Mrs. Higgins, have you ever seen a woman who just gave birth jump around like this? Look at my stomach. Do I look like I just had a baby? My moves left Mrs. Higgins dumbfounded. At this moment, Mrs. Lee from across the hall snapped out of it. That's right. Nora teaches at the university. She goes out every day. We've never seen her pregnant. Is this a mistake? The address was in the blanket. It's right here. The surveillance showed the person who dumped the kid had a build similar to yours. Mrs. Higgins tried to bluff. I put my hands on my hips, raising my voice an octave. Similar build? There are plenty of people with a similar build on the street. You are slandering my innocence out of thin air. I'm calling the police. Hearing police, Mrs. Higgins' expression changed. Why are you being so difficult? I snatched the bundle from her arms and held it high. You won't let me call the cops? Is it because you have a guilty conscience? Or is this baby's origin shady, and you're working with traffickers? As I spoke, I dialed 911. Hello? Police? There's someone here suspected of child trafficking, trying to frame me. You're spitting blood, she screamed. When the police get here, if you can't explain this clearly, I'm going to the city council to report you for abuse of power and personal vendettas. God let me live again. Every grievance I suffered in my past life was now my armor. When the police arrived, the scene was this. Mrs. Higgins holding the baby, face red with rage, and me in pajamas barefoot, looking fierce and rebellious. The neighbors were gathered 3 rows deep. After hearing the story, the officer looked at the baby. It was indeed a newborn, still wearing a hospital wristband. What is going on? Explain clearly. Officer, her parents left this address and name. Mrs. Higgins pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. The officer took it. The address was indeed mine, and the name matched. I crossed my arms. I don't know anything about it. Who knows who stole my info to make me the scapegoat? It's not mine. You guys raise it if you want. Just as I finished speaking, my parents, who had been hiding behind the crowd, finally squeezed through. Nora, just accept it. Can't the Zhou family afford to raise a girl? My dad opened with that line. Mom, Dad, are you senile? A baby of unknown origin, and you dare ask me to claim it? Who knows who the bio parents are? What if they're murderers? If there's some genetic disease or bad roots, I don't want to meddle. My words choked them into silence. Mrs. Higgins, face livid, shoved the baby directly into my dad's arms. This is a Zhou family matter, I'm out. If I knew your family was this unreasonable, I wouldn't have bothered. Instantly, the crowd buzzed. Everyone realized this definitely had something to do with my parents. You're lying. You just claimed it was my child. Now you're pushing it on my parents. Do you have evidence? Without evidence, you're forcing a baby on our family? Officer, I suspect she's shirking responsibility. I shoved the baby back to Mrs. Higgins, acting completely unconcerned. My parents stomped their feet in anxiety. Nora, Mom, Dad, don't be confused. There are so many scammers nowadays. Mrs. Lee chimed in. Old Joe, don't talk nonsense. Mrs. Higgins blamed Nora first, now pushes it on you. Something's fishy. Yeah, who knows where this kid came from? Mrs. Higgins panicked. I've worked for the community board for 20 years, would I lie? Last night, your daughter-in-law Jane ran to a shady clinic in our district and begged the doctor to deliver the baby. This is the photocopy of the ID she left there. She pulled a piece of paper from her bag. My parents looked at it and froze. It was unmistakably my sister-in-law Jane's info. Ironclad proof. It was Jane's child. The neighbors' gossip grew louder. Didn't Jane die in that accident with Kyle? How did she suddenly pop up and have a baby? Who knows? Maybe she didn't die and was hiding out. Who's the father? Kyle's been gone over 6 months. Nonsense. My daughter-in-law. My mom started to argue but swallowed her words. Mrs. Higgins sneered. Humph. Jane said that after the birth, I should send the kid to your house for the aunt to raise. Officer, I have the recording from the clinic doctor. She pulled out an old voice recorder and pressed play. In my last life, this recorder never appeared. In fact, when Jane returned to frame me, Mrs. Higgins testified for her, claiming I snatched the baby, nailing me to the cross of shame. This woman never had good intentions. Mrs. Higgins curled her lip. If I knew it was this much trouble, I would have sent it to the orphanage. Bad luck. The officer sighed. This is a domestic dispute. You all need to negotiate a solution. I grabbed the officer's arm. Officer, this isn't a domestic dispute. My sister-in-law went missing over 6 months ago. Now she suddenly appears and gives birth? What if she was coerced? What if that shady clinic did something to her? The officer paused, thinking it made sense. He immediately took Mrs. Higgins to find the clinic. My parents panicked and followed them. I turned around, went home, and packed my bags at lightning speed. I didn't want to stay in this house a second longer. As I walked out, a neighbor saw my suitcase. Nora, where are you going? Moving out. To the faculty dorms. Otherwise, if this kid ends up with my parents, they'll force me to raise it. Why should I be responsible for a child Jane birthed? I'm not even married. If word gets out, how will my future in-laws look at me? They'll think I was messing around and had a kid. They nodded in agreement. You're right, Nora. You have to look out for yourself. Go quickly. Poor thing. Jane is really something, giving birth and vanishing. Wonder if the clinic hurt her. I ignored the gossip and took a taxi straight to the university. By the time my parents returned, exhausted and holding the baby, I had already checked into the dorms. My mom called immediately. Her voice was full of fatigue and rage. Nora Jo, where did you run off to? I could hear a baby crying in the background. I answered calmly. I moved to the school dorms. How could you move out? If you leave, what about this baby? So they went to the clinic, confirmed it was Jane's, and confirmed she abandoned it. I just didn't understand why they were so dead set on me raising it. Mom, what does the kid have to do with me? I didn't give birth to it. The priority right now is finding Jane and asking who the father is. I have to prep for class. Bye. I hung up. I prepped, taught, and lived as if everything was normal. My colleague in the office, Mrs. Zhang, smiled and leaned in. Nora, seeing anyone? I want to introduce you to someone. I instinctively wanted to refuse, but then I thought, why not? Sure, Mrs. Zhang. Who is it? My nephew. 5 years older than you, PhD returnee, currently a guest professor here. Let's have lunch. I agreed readily. Mrs. Zhang was thrilled and went to call him. In my last life, I cut off all social ties to raise that child. Mrs. Zhang had tried to set me up then too, but I refused because the child was too young. I was such a fool. At noon, I met Mrs. Zhang's nephew Sam. We had a great impression of each other. We exchanged WeChats and agreed to start as friends. Mrs. Zhang was ecstatic. I'm telling you, if this works out, he'll treat you right. I watched him grow up, his character is solid. I smiled shyly. Sam and I started dating. For a whole month, my parents didn't contact me, and I enjoyed the peace. But I didn't expect my mom to come straight to the school. I was teaching a class when the registrar's office called. Professor Zhou, come quickly. Your mother left your daughter at the office. Come pick her up, she's crying so loud the whole building can hear. My brain buzzed. What daughter? I'm not married. Don't spread rumors. I deliberately spoke loudly so the whole lecture hall heard. The registrar sounded helpless. I don't know, just come look. I hung up. All the students were staring at me. What happened, Professor Zhou? I don't know. The registrar says someone claiming to be my mom brought my daughter in. The students exploded into chatter. What? Is this a scam? Professor Zhou has a daughter? Never heard of that. Young people these days, maybe it's from before. Listening to the whispers, I put on a confused and aggrieved face. Accompanied by a few helpful students, I went to the registrar's office. When we arrived and saw the crying infant on the sofa, everyone was dumbfounded. A student sighed in relief. How could Professor Zhou have birthed this? This baby is barely a month old. Exactly. Who is so evil? If they brought a toddler, Professor Zhou really couldn't clear her name. This is defamation. I laughed internally. The registrar looked awkward. The person who dropped the baby off claimed to be your mother. I really don't know. I asked him to pull the surveillance footage. The video showed a strange middle-aged woman dropping the baby. I immediately had a plan. Call the police. This person isn't my mom. I don't know her. Everyone hesitated. I threw up my hands. This is child abandonment. As a teacher, I meet a lot of people. Who knows who is impersonating my mom to scam me? I won't raise someone else's kid. They agreed and called the police. The cops came, asked questions, and took the baby. I specifically asked, where will the baby go? Where else? If we can't find the parents, she goes to the orphanage. Hearing that, the heavy stone in my heart finally dropped. In this life, I would absolutely not raise that ungrateful wolf. As soon as the police left, my mom sent a voice message on WeChat. It was frantic. Nora. We got in touch with Jane. She said she's going south to work. We're too old to raise a baby. Just treat her like your own and raise her. I typed back immediately. Mom, what are you talking about? I have a boyfriend. I'm going to get married and have my own kids. I will absolutely not raise this child. I didn't mention the incident at the registrar's office, and she didn't mention it either. I pretended I knew nothing. Sam treated me well. 6 months later, we got engaged. I only invited close friends and colleagues. I didn't tell my parents a thing. After marriage, we applied for a transfer program to the main campus in the capital, and Sam became a tenured professor there. I rarely visited that so-called home, only dropping gifts during holidays and leaving after 5 minutes. I gave birth to my daughter Annie. I just wanted her to be safe and peaceful. From a young age, Annie showed amazing talent in gymnastics. By 15, she won the National Youth Championship and was recruited by the national team. The news broke, and the whole family was proud. Sam was overjoyed and took us back to our hometown for a grand celebration banquet. Friends, relatives, and neighbors all came. Even my thick-skinned parents showed up. Annie was only 16, but years of training made her tall and graceful. This led my parents to assume this praised girl was Jane's child. My mom held Annie's hand, eyes full of calculation. If your Aunt Jane knew you were so successful, she'd be so happy. Mom, it's a happy day. Why mention Jane? She's back. My mom's eyes flickered. No, she's not back. Sigh, after so many years, she never came to look. Did something happen to her? I heard missing persons are rarely found. I had intentionally spread rumors over the years that Jane ran off and abandoned her kid, so the neighbors saw her as heartless. Everyone assumed she was gone for good, but I knew my parents were secretly in contact with her. Hearing me say this, my mom got upset. Her sharp voice cut through the banquet. Stop talking nonsense. Your Aunt Jane is alive and well. Everyone looked over. My mom realized she slipped up and looked awkward. I smiled. So you are in contact with her? Why hasn't she come for her daughter? She abandoned her own flesh and blood. She's probably ashamed. Forget it, let's not mention her. My mom sighed in relief, but looked like she wanted to explain. She didn't. The pathetic hope from my last life was extinguished. In my last life, Jane returned when my niece became famous. This time was the same. I knew she would come. Because Annie made the national team, officials from the sports bureau and media reporters were present. All eyes were on our table. Annie was invited to the stage. When she stood there, my parents didn't realize she was only 16. Jane's daughter, if alive, would be 18. They ignored this fatal logical flaw, checking their phones frequently. I left internally, squeezing sameskend. On stage, Annie's voice was crisp. I want to thank my mom the most. Without her, I wouldn't be here. Mom, come up. She reached out to me. I adjusted my dress, ready to stand, when a piercing female voice exploded. She isn't your mom. She doesn't deserve to stand next to you. Everyone turned. I sighed in relief. Finally, it was Jane, standing next to a man in a fur coat and thick gold chain. She was here. I suppressed the waves in my heart. 16 years later, she looked worn, heavy makeup failing to hide her wrinkles and fatigue. Compared to me, the difference was night and day. She grabbed the arm of the middle-aged man and walked over quickly. Annie frowned. Annie, this is your Aunt Jane, I said, identifying her immediately. Jane shook with excitement. You liar. Norjo. Child, I am your real mother. The crowd gasped. Annie raised an eyebrow. You're the liar. Auntie, I'm my mother's biological daughter. You ran away after giving birth, and my grandparents sent that baby to an orphanage. I never hid Jane's existence from my kids. I told them about the past openly. Sam's family knew the whole grudge. Jane burst into tears. Instant waterworks. Child, she lied to you. After I gave birth, I left you with your grandparents, but this cruel aunt stole you. I didn't dare come back for years because I was afraid I couldn't find you. Nora, why? I looked for you so hard. You can't tear us mother and daughter apart. Everyone looked at her. But soon, she noticed something was wrong. The gazes around her were filled with contempt and skepticism. She panicked. Why don't you believe me? She really stole my baby. That's not right. Mrs. Lee stood up. Jane, don't lie. Years ago, Mrs. Higgins brought the baby claiming it was Nora's. Nora proved her wrong on the spot. The police found out you abandoned the baby. Your in-laws were too old to raise it, so they gave it away. Jane was stunned. My mom stood up, voice trembling. I didn't give it away. I hired someone to send it to Nora's school. Mrs. Lee rolled her eyes. We went to Nora's wedding. We never saw a kid. Old Mrs. Zhou don't make things up. My mom panicked. I really sent it to the school. Jane, wake up. This child is the one Nora raised. Look how successful she is. My mom was scared, especially meeting my cold gaze. She scrambled to change the narrative. Jane wiped her tears and turned to me. Sister, maybe I misunderstood. But child, I really am your mom. Annie looked at her, then at me. You're lying. I'm not your daughter. My mother-in-law stepped forward and slapped Jane across the face. Stop spewing crap. This is my daughter-in-law's child, carried for 10 months. We have hospital records from conception to birth. She almost died from hemorrhaging during delivery. We pulled every string to save them. You dare say my precious granddaughter is yours? Do you have no shame? My father-in-law added. Say one more word of nonsense and I'll sue you for slander. Jane covered her face, stunned. She looked at me. I raised an eyebrow. She realized. It's you, Nora. You faked everything. The man beside her shouted. You guys are rich professors. Faking documents is easy. If you have guts, let's do a DNA test. Annie ignored him. My parents chimed in. Nora, just give the child back to your Aunt Jane. Yeah, Jane had it hard. You have a son too, just give Annie back. The guests whispered. What is happening? Did she really steal the kid? 16 years of feelings, but blood is blood. Bullshit. She said it's her biological daughter. Jane, do you have proof? Does the kid have a birthmark? Mom, did you see me accept that baby with your own eyes? I asked coldly. They froze. I laughed. Forgot to tell you, my daughter is 16. She's in the junior national team. Your daughter should be 18. The math doesn't work. You recognized the wrong daughter. The crowd reacted. Right. Annie is 15-16. I went to her 1-month party. Nora married a year after the baby incident. Right. My parents turned pale. Jane stumbled. You lied about her age to keep her. Everyone laughed at her delusion. The sports bureau official stood up seriously. Ma'am, you are speaking nonsense. If what you say is true, her qualification would be revoked immediately. This is serious slander. I will report this. Comrade Annie's documents are authentic. Annie pulled out her ID. I'm willing to do a DNA test. But if I'm not your daughter, you will face legal consequences for slander and emotional damage. My son stood by me. Annie is my mom's baby. What proof do you have besides your mouth? My mom's face was white. You're lying. Nora, if Annie is yours, where is Jane's daughter? I spread my hands. Probably at the orphanage. 18 years ago, the registrar told me someone dropped a baby off. I checked the cameras, didn't know the woman, and called the cops. The police took the baby to the orphanage. The records are there. Jane screamed and lunged at me. I slapped her to the ground. You dare hit me? Nora, give me my daughter. I sneered. You animal. You gave birth to a bastard, ran away, dumped it on my parents, and tried to frame me. You lived it up for 16 years, saw my daughter get famous, and came to steal the glory? You don't have that destiny. Your trash genes couldn't produce a champion like my daughter. Ask your good parents why they didn't bring the baby themselves. My mom panicked under Jane's glare. I was afraid Nora wouldn't see me, so I hired a stranger. I saw Nora carry the baby inside. She stared at me. Nora, how could you be so cruel? That was your niece. That was your granddaughter, and you threw her at me. Jane screamed hysterically. Shut up. Annie is my daughter. It's her. Nora is lying. The fake rich guy, Frank, shouted. My daughter, the daughter of Frank Lee, can't be in an orphanage. Jane, if you don't explain this, I'm done with you. Jane panicked. I called the police again. Jane rolled on the floor, but I agreed to an expedited DNA test. 3 hours later, the report proved I was Annie's biological mother. Jane collapsed. She looked at me in disbelief. You really sent my daughter to the orphanage? I shrugged. A baby of unknown origin? Of course. I told you, police take them to the orphanage. If she's lucky, she's still there. If not, maybe adopted. I'd go look if I were you. Frank kicked Jane hard in the face. You bitch. You said you helped the Zhou family keep a seed, and when the kid got rich, we'd claim her. Now, you useless trash. He stomped on her. My parents tried to protect her and got kicked too. My mom crawled to me. Nora, help. He's going to kill your sister-in-law. I kicked her hand away. You watched as you tried to push your daughter to a dead end. If I didn't have proof today, I'd be labeled a human trafficker. Am I not your child? Plus, your granddaughter might not even be biological to us. I refused to help. With the DNA results, I sued for slander and demanded damages. The next day, my parents called crying. Nora, come with us to the orphanage. Please. Just help your Aunt Jane. I looked at Sam. He nodded. We went. At the orphanage, Jane was beaten black and blue. She looked at me with pure venom. The staff told us the girl, Mimi Zhou, had been expelled for misconduct years ago. Theft fighting. She hangs out at the Midnight KTV in the West City. We went to the KTV. In a dim room smelling of smoke and booze, we saw Mimi Zhou. She had bright pink hair, and was rolling dice with thugs. She was heavily pregnant, at least 7 or 8 months along. She was only 18. Jane trembled. You are Mimi? Mimi didn't look up. Yeah. Who wants to know? A thug hugged her. Who are you people? I'm the baby's dad. What of it? Jane nearly fainted. She's only 18. How could you? The thug spat. Consensual. Who are you, old lady? I'm her mom. Jane screamed. Mimi laughed. My mom? I'm an orphan. Are you here to scam me? Frank rushed up. You want to die, kid? Seeing Frank's size, the thug hid behind Mimi. This is my daughter? You made a mistake. Frank looked disgusted. I compared the file photo. Mimi, these are your parents. They are very rich. Look at the brands. Mimi's eyes lit up. She grabbed the thug. Did you hear? My rich parents. We're set. Jane gagged. Impossible. I smiled. Jane, acknowledge her. You wanted your daughter, here she is. Sam, aren't they touching? Very touching, Sam deadpanned. I pushed Mimi toward them. Go get a DNA test and have them buy you dinner. Sam had investigated Frank. He was a broke gambler, a fraud. He wanted to scam money from us. Now, stuck with his trashy bio daughter and a pregnant teen, he was doomed. The DNA confirmed it. Mimi was Jane and Frank's kid, no relation to my brother. My parents were furious, but I dropped the whole family of 5 back at my parents' tiny apartment and left. Mimi assumed they were rich and moved in with her thug boyfriend. 7 people in a 60-square-meter flat. Mrs. Lee told me later it was chaos. Mimi demanded a $20,000 dowry. The thug demanded $30,000. Frank and Jane had nothing. The young couple beat Frank and my parents. My dad got a concussion, my mom broke her leg. Jane's arm was broken by Mimi. When I went to the hospital to pay the bare minimum bill, my mom cried and begged me to drive the pests away. Mom, that's your granddaughter. You have to use love to influence her. I left them to rot. 6 months later, Sam and I sold the old property to move permanently to the capital. At the gate, I saw Jane. She looked 20 years older, picking through trash. Seeing my car, she rushed over, screaming, Nora, it shouldn't be like this. You died. Everything should be mine. It's mine. She chased the car, screaming. I rolled up the window and smiled. So, she was reborn too. Just too late, and too stupid. She could spend this life rotting with her precious daughter.